Hello Year 11. So here we are, night before the DT mock. So I'm talking to product designers and textile students as well. And I just want to remind you that the exam is 2 hours long. That is different to what it says on your laminated timetables. So please expect to stay for the full 2 hours. If you don't fill that 2 hours, then that is a big hint to you that you need to go back and add some extra detail. It is designed, the questions are designed to take you the full 2 hours. So it's not a race. If you find yourself with time at the end, go back, particularly go back to the longer answers and see if you can add some extra detail, some extra examples to make sure that you're maxing out your marks. Just a reminder that you need to make sure you go into the exam with a calculator and ideally a protractor. I will try and have some protractors available for you Monday lunchtime when we do our last minute warm-up, but you need to be responsible for bringing your own calculator. 15% of the questions are mathematically based, so you need to make sure you're prepared for that. This is the bottom half that you'll see of the front page of the exam booklet, and it is helpful at the bottom because it reminds you that this paper is divided into 3 sections, and it tells you how many marks are available for each section, and that really does help guide you to how much time you should be spending on each section. So you might want to divide in your own mind or write it on the paper at the beginning of the session to help keep track of time. At the end of 20 minutes, that's when you should be finishing section A. Section B should take you the next 30 minutes, and section C should take you 50 minutes after that. That will allow you 20 minutes to distribute a little bit more evenly across section B and C, because that's where the longer answers will come. So this is only the second time you've sat a full paper, so you may not remember that the beginning of the DT paper, the first 20 marks, is multiple choice, or mostly multiple choice. You'll have practiced lots of those types of questions in Do Now activities. And that will mean that you'll remember that the content is about all knowledge about design and technology materials areas. So no matter whether you're studying product design or textiles, you need to have a broad knowledge of everything to do with design and technology. And the following slides will help you revise that knowledge. The inside of the first page on the exam booklet reminds you how you should be filling in your answers to that first set of questions. So it is really important that you don't mark your lozenge in any other way than colouring it in. It needs to be a solid black blob in the middle of that oval shape, so that in June, when your exam papers are scanned in, your answers stand out. If you do make a mistake, you put a neat cross through, and then you put the right answer. And if you want to go back and change your mind again because you think your first answer was right, then you put a circle around it. All of that, if you forget what to do, is explained in that first section, or first part of section A. This is the list of topics that are in section A and what you need to be able to do. This isn't a surprise list because it's been distributed to you before in your exam booklet, which is also available on Arbor if you prefer the colour version. You can use this slide as a checklist to check against the topics that you're confident in, and I'm going to leave you to work through the next set of slides at your own pace so that you've got time to revise and cram knowledge for areas that you're not so confident with. Just a reminder that if you need extra information or you don't understand the information that I've put in the booklet, then you can use the QR codes, which will take you to relevant pages on BBC Bite Size. And so to section B. This is where the answers you need to give will be longer, ranging from 2 to 9 marks. This is the section where you can show off your knowledge about how to use materials and the knowledge about the materials you work with in your own specialist area. So when you answer these questions, you can choose to answer them from a product design point of view or from a textiles point of view. If you answer them from a product design point of view, you will have a choice about whether you want to discuss timbers or metals or plastics. There will also be paper and card questions and electronics questions. You do not need to worry about those because none of you have learnt about those in detail. You must answer every single question, but how you answer it is down to your own specialism. This is the topic list for section B. It's a shorter list than section A, but that's because the questions get longer and you're expected to know a little bit more about each area. This is where the maths questions first come in. They're not complicated questions on this paper, but you do need to be really careful to read every single detail. I highly recommend highlighting key information so that you don't miss tiny bits of detail that will affect the calculations that you make. In order to help you prepare for some of those maths questions, I have dotted the similar type of questions that you'll receive through this section of your booklet. So this is where you should pause and start practicing the skills, and the calculation ones are on this slide. Data analysis questions fall into this section as well, and that's where you often have to fill in the blanks on the table using the information that you've already got and then represent that information by finishing a chart. That chart could be a bar chart or it could be a pie chart. I've already told you that you need a protractor for this exam, so that gives you a big hint about which one you'll need to do on Monday. There's always a question about how things are done in industry in this section, and they're called commercial processes. Anything that we do domestically, we do in our school workshop or at home, but anything commercial is what happens in a factory. And you need to be clear in your area of expertise on one commercial process. So we've got the textiles page of revision in front of us now, and textiles students have already been prepped that they need to know one specialist method of making materials through weaving, or one method of decorating that fabric through a printing process. The way in which textile materials can be purchased is called their stock form, and a breakdown of that is on this page as well. If you're a product designer, skip past this page, you don't need it. Likewise, if you're a textile student, you can skip through the next two slides. In terms of product design students, I've divided this page into sections about timber, metals and plastics. I suggest you pick one to prepare well. You don't need to know about all of them in detail. Separately for each one, I've listed how you can buy each of those types of material. So timber, for instance, you can buy in planks, strips, mouldings and boards. That is your stock form for timbers. Metal stock forms are sheets, strip bars, rods, tubes, angles, etc. So you need to remember and revise how you purchase one of these different types of product materials, and the commercial processes for these different types of materials are also shown here. So you might, if you choose timber, you might need to explain how to route or turn the timber. Metal would be treated in a different way, and when we move on to the next slide, you'll see that plastic can be treated in a different way. Prepare for one material if you are a product design student. You do not need to know all of them. Now, usually the last question of section B is about the environment, but unusually in this particular paper, it's about methods of production and the difference between batch, one-off, mass and continuous production. And also you need to know about flexible manufacturing systems and just in time. So there is written information here to help you brush up on that. Textile students should be quite confident with it. Product designers may need a little bit more input at a later date, but I've also put a QR code on there for BBC bite size. Essentially, you will need to think about one-off design. An example of one-off production would be a wedding dress, so something that is designed for one person to fit one person to fit one person's style. It could be a bespoke dining table or a set of wardrobes. But one-off production is a product that is designed to suit the needs of one particular person. It's expensive and it's normally made by a singular work person who is expert in making that whole product. You're going to be asked to compare the idea of one-off production to the more commercial methods of production. Batch production is for products that happen to be changed regularly during the year. So seasonal products, I've put an example of a Christmas jumper here, but there's certain things that we only buy at particular times of the year because of the weather or because of festivities. So that's batch production. It's commercial. You can produce thousands of products through batch production, but you need to have the facility to change what your factory does in order to meet seasonal demand. So the Cadbury's factory, for instance, needs to swap to cream egg production for half the year and then some Christmas chocolate for the rest of the year. The next stage, sort of scale of production up is mass production. So that's things that are produced in high volume, something like a school shirt. They're needed all year round and they don't change year on year. That would be mass production. Continuous production happens all the time. So components that would be added to other products like screws or tacks or zips, as you can see here. So they're needed for all sorts of products all year round. They would be in continuous production. Just in time is the idea that shops, through their barcodes, send messages to manufacturers to say, we're running out of one type of product. Can you please make and deliver more of that product? At that point, that would trigger the factories to order the materials they need, then make, then ship straight away. It reduces the amount of storage needed in the factories, and space is money, so it makes it a much more efficient system. But all the information you need is on this slide, and actually it's a quite straightforward question if you are confident with the knowledge. Section C is the largest section, and this section mimics almost in exactly the same way your NEA progresses. So you're just coming to the end of the research and design element of your NEA. The research and the design elements will be in here. There'll also be questions about modelling, which is our next stage, and there'll be questions about evaluation, which is what we do right at the end. And in between, there might be some questions about how we cut, how we make, we make sure we're efficient and not creating any waste. So if you hit a stumbling block with this section and you don't understand, just think about what you've done in your NEA and it might prompt you along a little bit. Here again is a list of the topics that are in this section, and the following slides will guide you through that, and I'll interject every now and again, but probably not on every single slide. It is absolutely certain that every single exam paper asks you to do some product analysis. And both product designers and textile students have practiced product analysis in the last few weeks. And we have gone through the language that you'll see in the paper. So aesthetics, functionality, suitability for user, ergonomics, anthropometrics, iterative design and innovation are all words that you could see crop up in the paper, and the product that they show you, you will be asked to analyse and evaluate. To analyse, we identify a fact about that product, and then when we evaluate, we decide whether that's a good or a bad thing based on the issue that we've been asked to consider. So if it's aesthetics, we would need to look at the product. Is that aesthetically pleasing? How has that changed over time? Do we think that's a good thing? So read the question properly, highlight the keywords that you need to talk about, and try and stay focused on that. Mathematics crop up again in this section, and this question here that will prepare you gives you a big hint of some of the knowledge that, or the skills that you'll need to be successful in this section. So certainly knowing how to work out the perimeter of a circle or the circumference, and also being able to think about tolerance of material, so knowing how big or small we can cut a piece of material for the product still to work is going to help you. So there's often a question about researching in this section and why designers do research, which you've all done research, so just think about why you've done it and how it's helped you. And there's often a question about design strategies. The design strategy that you use for your NEA is that it is user-centered design. You have to pick a customer and you have to design something that's really, really specific to them. That is user-centered design, but there's some notes on this page to help you remember that as well. In terms of technical drawing, we've all practiced some of that, and the next slide will help you particularly revise or remember the techniques for 1-point perspective and orthographic projection. These are the drawing styles that are definitely in this paper. I won't know that for the final exam, but I can give you the hint for the mock, and you will be asked to translate one style of drawing into another. We've practiced the milk carton question in school, but you might want to have another go at it. And then there's another question above it about orthographic drawings to help you practice orthographics. Do not ignore this question. It's worth 5 or 6 marks, and even if you just do some of the drawing, you might pick up a mark or 2. Do not just leave it blank because it looks complicated. Have a go at it. You'll be surprised how easily it is to pick up marks. And this slide shows the last little bit of information you need to gen up on. You will be confident with the idea about environmental issues because you'll cover it in science. We talk about it a lot in technology, and if you do geography, your knowledge is transferable there too. It's unusual for this to be the last question of the paper, but it's quite a nice comfort zone in order to finish it off. Remember that when you do get to the end of the paper, the idea is that you should be finishing it 2 hours after you started it. So if you have rushed it, that is your huge cue that you could go back and you could look at the mark schemes, look at how many marks are available for each question. Have you maxed out your marks? Please do not think that it's an opportunity to have a bit of a rest. Use your time fully. Good luck, and let me know how you get